All right, chat. It's currently 2 a.m. local time. We normally record these around like 1 o'clock, but there's a very special reason that we're recording it at 2 a.m. today.
That's right. Liquid stayed up until 1:45 a.m. local time trying to secure a Sprocket Monger lock and stock kill. Tettles made this graphic before we knew whether or not they killed the boss and put Sprocket Monger kill here. But there is still no guild to have killed Sprocket Monger in the world. Although, as we can see from this one, Echo are probably ahead at this point, having killed Styx earlier in their day than Liquid in the corresponding day, and having a big opportunity. They haven't yet killed Sprocket Monger, but I think there's a pretty good chance. I think everybody's expecting them to kill it during their 7th day, during their first reset, which Liquid did not, which means they're going to have more eye level than Liquid. A small but potentially noticeable amount.
You talked about in yesterday's recap, basically, if you saw Echo killing Styx Bunk Trucker within a couple of hours, they were probably ahead. They dominated that boss. That boss, they absolutely crushed that fight.
They killed it about as I was uploading the video. Now, haters will say that I could have uploaded the video an hour earlier, but I got into some Mythic Plus Keystones and forgot for a little bit. But that was when they got it. So yeah, you can see compared to, actually, if you scroll up, look at the 24-hour ago machine. You can see where we were 24 hours ago, right? Echo were about to get that kill, and Liquid had 10 pulls on lock and stock. And now Echo making... well, look at that graph, though. Look at that progression graph. So they had one really deep pull, but they still don't have all that many purpley pulls. If you compare this to Liquid's version of the same one, Liquid actually had a string of really deep purpley pulls here.
So I was casting from
before, this one right here, from pulls like 60 to 70, just a crazy string.
I was casting during this, and I was like on some insane cope that they were like about to kill the boss.
So I think that something that might be true of this encounter is that this might be one of those bosses that those last like 15% are actually really hard. So if you look at how Liquid are wiping, so often it is to the orbs, because basically at the end of this fight, you get like 70 void orbs, and if any one of them impacts any one player, you will usually wipe, which is very, very harsh.
So we have like I just pulled this up because this is just like an Echo POV.
Yeah, I don't know if they made it. They're down a tank here, so I don't know if they'll even make it to that part of this fight on this pull.
So basically what happens is the boss casts Beta Launch, he goes to this edge right here, and then he empowers some of his inventions. This final phase, like you kind of mentioned, okay, they actually do get mirrors up, so we'll at least be able to see that mythic mechanic that you're talking about. The final invention empowerment involves the missiles that were previously single target turning into these void orbs. These void orbs, whenever contacted by a singular player, explode on the entire raid, hitting the entire raid for 6.5 million damage. The players have around 7 to 8 million HP, so it's livable if one person hits an orb. The problem is if there's any group-wide damage, like this orb right here, this orb right here. The problem is if there's any group-wide damage that's on the players right before they get hit by an orb, then it just immediately kills them off. So one person getting hit by an orb, while it doesn't wipe you immediately, it does probably at least kill off 5 to 10 people immediately.
Now, that particular overlap looked pretty easy, but there is a future one that has the magnets pulling you in at the same time, and then a final one that has the lasers at the same time. And that one has proven to be almost impossible to survive without everybody or almost everybody dying, because even one person getting hit there. And like you said, it's a survivable amount of damage in a vacuum, but there's a lot of other raid damage happening on this fight as well.
Here's the deal with the Race World First Guild. No other guild in the world will ever actually see that overlap, because a little bit more gear is going to go a long way. Even if Echo and Liquid had Vantis runes, particularly on this boss, they might even be able to skip that overlap. Like a guild like yours, if you guys pull Sprocket Monger at 665, you're beating the fight by an additional like 10 seconds over where Liquid and Echo are gonna kill it, and you're never seeing that weird overlap where it's balls plus magnets.
Dude, this tier, I don't know, this tier, we're in 7th right now. We're kind of cranking. Maybe we'll get there to 60 or something.
But even next week, Echo and Liquid aren't killing or killing it before that overlap too. So we may never see a guild that actually kills it after having survived that overlap. Now, I do actually think that there's a decent chance of, if there's going to be a guild that's going to kill it, it's going to be Echo. They're basically pulling the boss right now, and their best pull is 12?
It's sub 10% now. They have a 9 point something is their best.
Okay, a 9 point something is their best, which, you know, if it's going to be any guild, it's going to be them today, but...
Method might as well. Method, you know, definitely not a guild to count out. They have they have like 12 more hours at the time of recording this to prog. Now, the Europeans do want to go to bed in to be able to wake up for a 5 a.m. reset on their Wednesday.
Yeah.
So they're not going to want to stay up too late. But you remember this time last year, Method were staying up past the 3 a.m. server downtime and then stayed up, played again after the downtime, but before the reset to kill their Silken Court at the end of the first reset. So we'll see if it would be, I think, foolish to do that with this boss, but that is a guild that has made that kind of decision in the past, so we'll see.
So this is kind of a situation. I actually don't even think it's that big of a deal that Liquid didn't kill the boss. It's the 5th boss of the raid. Does it suck that they didn't kill it? Yeah, kinda.
They were missing out on apparently 5 box upgrades, which is not nothing.
Yeah.
And then also 4 pieces of loot, plus a 5th if you're lucky, and you get that Go pack, and that's a lot of value. That thing has a lot of eye levels on it. But the other items from this boss, we're talking about 1 tier piece. And then, maybe you get like the healer trinket or the damage trinket, and those kind of marginal, or you get some off pieces. So it's definitely not the end of the world. It's no Spymaster's Web, which was a huge addition to the loot table and then the vault loot table for all the players that Method were able to get it on last year. But it will still be nice, and it'll be nice for morale and momentum. Now, those are intangible things that are often, I think, overrated by sports commentators and Race to World First commentators, but it's not nothing. And that's the kind of thing where when people look back at this race, if Echo end up winning and if Echo end up winning this boss today, they might point to this as the point where they took the lead and never looked back.
I have seen some incredible chokes in the Race to World First history before, particularly on final bosses. It's one of those situations where anything can happen,
and there's still 3 bosses after this, and Liquid would have killed it too if it weren't for that darn power outage. There was a 3-hour power outage today. So we don't even have to try that hard to come up with an excuse, because every Race to World First, there's always a tradition of you got to come up with some good excuses for why your team lost. This time it's easy. Power outage. That's a good one, right? That one, it's not even that much of a stretch. They probably would have killed it without that power outage.
I'm convinced that they actually would have killed it without that power outage. But it is what it is. Basically, long term, all they can do is just kind of buckle down and be able to continue to prog to the best of their ability. For Echo, I think if you just continue to play at this level and playing to this game plan, Echo's in the driver's seat right now. They just have to be able to close out. And, the hardest boss, the final boss, always proves to be the most difficult. And that's the fight where you can actually make up a bunch of ground or, in Fireaxe's case, lose 24 hours.
There's basically never been a race where a team played well to start and then played badly on the final boss and still won. It doesn't happen. The team that's won almost every Race to World First is the team that plays better on the last boss of the tier.
Exactly.
That is almost always true, and this is probably not going to be an exception, but there is still jockeying for position, and the item level advantage is not nothing. If Gallywix is super hard, being Echo and having maybe a half eye level on Liquid as a result of getting a Sprocket Monger kill this week will be very nice.
So now we're kind of looking down the barrel of potentially a 3rd reset.
Yeah.
So we're on the eve of the first reset, or the second reset. Yeah, we're on the eve of the second reset. And we're kind of thinking, so there's a world where you can actually make it to the 3rd reset. Almost all of those situations involve One-Armed Bandit actually being probably 100 to 150 pulls, Muggsy being somewhere between 100 to 150 pulls as well, and then Gallywix being a traditional end boss, right? 250 plus pulls.
Which there's an important note here, which is all of that has to be true even with week 2 gear. You're talking about Sprocketmonger way easier with week 2 gear than week 1 gear. One-Armed Bandit, that might be true as well. We may not really see One-Armed Bandit week 1 prog. I think an example of this is Sire Denathrius. Sire Denathrius was a relatively low pull count boss because it was almost entirely fought during week 2. Because Stone Legion Generals was so hard. So the harder the week 1 stuff is, unless they've tuned the stuff that's in the future for future weeks, which Sepulchre they did, then there's a good chance that those might actually have smaller pull counts because maybe that DPS check is not that much of an issue because of that extra gear.
So looking towards the 3rd reset, I think the most likely day that the race force is going to end is it's like Sunday.
Monday still. Yeah. I think there's a good chance that this is a 2 I think it's still more likely than not that it's a 2 reset tier. We'll know a lot more once we see One-Armed Bandit, because I think you're right. That boss is a very important boss for how long this tier takes.
Exactly. The moment that you see One-Armed Bandit crest 100 pulls, that's when you're starting to all right, maybe we're in 3 reset territory here. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for us today. Thank you guys so much for watching all these recaps. Thank you guys so much for watching the Race to World First.
Sorry about no Kalamazoo, no Taco Bell tonight, no Zyro. Everybody's gone to bed that can. He's on an early shift tomorrow, so understandable. But we'll try and make it up for you. I'm sure we've got many more recaps to come over the next couple of days. Many more fast food orders to time our recording to be right in the middle of.
Apparently he procced Chick-fil-A without us.
He did, man. He brought in Chick-fil-A and then he looked kind of sheepishly at me and he was like, I'm sorry I didn't ask you. It's messed up, man.
Chicken and cheese.
Chicken and cheese, yeah. Then he showed me a tub of like it was just like chicken with cheese. I was like, no, you're good, man. It's we're cool here. Dude, let me know next time we're getting the bell.
Dude, he literally showed me. He showed me it too. Whenever he was leaving, it looked like it was like congealed to the container it was in. It was actually gross.
It looked like one of those meals you eat and you wouldn't order from that place again for a couple months, you know, and until you've forgotten about it.
We got to get out of here. It's way too late.
Taco Bell sponsor us. Chick-fil-A will change our minds. We'll revert our opinion and delete this video. Sponsor us as well.
Please send us
any fast food place. Let us know. We'll order it.
But also shout out Wowhead.
GN.